So last time in this series I made Space Cadet in Garden Warfare 2, and I mentioned at the end of that video that I'd go ahead and do Nightcap next, and today we're going to be trying to make Nightcap in Garden Warfare 2. So normally in these videos I start off with a model, but here I wanted to start off with Fung Fu since this would be the most awkward ability to make. So first I want to introduce you to the Nightcap placeholder model that I'll be using. I'm not going to be building Nightcap off Imp, but this is just a placeholder for now. So in BFN, Nightcap teleports around during Fung Fu to do the ability, so I'm going to have to try and replicate this in Garden Warfare 2 in some way. So my idea was to give Nightcap multiple different warp buffs that teleport her around and does an explosion every single time she teleports. I'll show on screen the little map that I developed on how it would look. The idea is to make it so Nightcap teleports around but never loses her initial position when she uses the ability. So I decided to start off by only trying out a few different warp buffs instead of all 12, and you can see on screen this is how it came out. So with that working, I decided to go and make all 12 buffs and get this started. You can see here it's now starting to work how I wanted it, with her teleporting around and she'd do damage at each of the different points, and it would stay in somewhat of a decent area to make it so zombies can get away. Now I'm going to make some different effects for it, so it's not just doing a regular explosion, but instead it's doing something similar to what it is in BFN. So with that working, I now need to make the little intro sequence that she does before she goes into the ability. The final thing I need to do for this is add an explosion that she does at the end of Fung Fu. You can see in the intro sequence she does a little spin effect. This will be used later on for something else. So for the other characters I've done so far in this series, the models haven't been too bad to do. Nightcap is probably the hardest one I've had to do so far because there's not a single character that she fits perfectly over. The original plan when I started this series was to do Nightcap over the Imitator. You can see on screen here how it was starting to look. So you might think this is a character I'm going to stick with and I'm going to go through and make the full weapon now. But no, because I need Nightcap to be able to scale down for both in-game and also Shadow Sneak. And no matter how hard I tried, I was never able to make it so Imitator scaled down in game. I'd assume this is because Imitator is an unused character, so his skeleton's a bit messed up and doesn't support scaling. So I had to look for different alternatives on what to rig Nightcap to. There was two that I was thinking of, both Imp and Cactus. I decided on Cactus since the legs are kind of similar to Nightcap and she also stretches a lot like Nightcap does in BFN. So it was now time to work on the rig for Cactus. I would show the little process in me making it, but I have done so many revisions on this model that I didn't record a single one since I had to make sure it was okay. I will however show me going through all 17 static models of Nightcap that I made for this mod, and each of them are a different revision of what I have done before I eventually settled on a version of it with a proper rig. Here's a few of the different tests that I did with Cactus. You can see I also got the voice lines in the game too. Not all of them just yet though. So I wanted to mess around with the mesh variations of the model a bit just to make a different skin for Nightcap to see how it would work, and this is how it came out. So with all that finished, I had to start working on the weapon for Nightcap. In BFN they use two different projectiles to do the different slices that she fires, each of them being a different effect. I used a thing similar to what the Zen Cactus uses to shoot a different projectile based on how much ammo you're on to get this effect. You can see here it's using a different trail depending on how much ammo I'm at. So now I have to get in the different slices that BFN uses, and it turns out it uses a model for it, so I had to import two models to get this to work. I then went back and added the sounds to the weapon as well. I'm going to adjust the audio of the voice lines later on, but for now we're going to start working on the shadow ball thing that I don't remember the name of. So I started out by just building it off the gravity grenade since it works quite similar. But then I thought of going back to what I was working on with Fung Fu. Since I'm working off Cactus now, I have the taunts that I can use for different animations. When Nightcap enters Fung Fu, she does a little spin before she starts attacking, and since Cactus has an emote that's very similar, I decided to make it so it applies the taunt as she goes into the attack. So with that done, it was time to go back and work on the shadow ball thing. I added some debuffs that applied to the zombies when they're inside of the bubble. Now how the ability works in BFN is it makes all plants that are inside invisible, but I can't do this in Garden Warfare 2 since it has to scale stuff down and it won't work with characters like Torchwood and Acorn. So instead I had the idea to make it have a smoke cloud that is inside of the bubble. The first test didn't really go too well because the effects are kinda messed up. I polished up the effects for the ability and added some more stuff to it, and this is the result that I got. So I'm going to make some more changes to this ability later on, like making it so when Nightcap throws down the bubble, she gets the effects inside of there too. But I wanted to do a little quality of life change to the mod to make it so all the classes show on the spawn screen at the same time, since some people didn't realise that you need to scroll down to find the new classes. But now I'm going to work on Shadow Sneak, which is the final ability for Nightcap, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to have to scale her down to make it so she can turn invisible. This first test had a few issues with it. As you can see, she doesn't scale down immediately, but you can get the idea on how it's going to look once it's finished. I fixed the issue of her not scaling down immediately, and I also made it so it plays the sound effects from BFN too. So I added some effects to give it the same vibe as what BFN has. It's a bit bright, but you can see the idea on what I'm trying to go for. I made some changes to the effects, and I also made it so it applies the little Hitmo effect to the screen as well while you're in the ability. I went back and added the sound effects from BFN that play during Shadow Sneak, and also an effect that plays once you leave it as well. With all of the weapons complete now, it's time to give them all ability icons. I also gave Nightcap a custom render that I made too for the icon. The final thing I need to do now is give her a custom spotting icon. I used the split screen mod to test this out, and you can see what it looks like here. With the spotting icon done, that means that everything for Nightcap is now complete, which means we can finally move on to the gameplay. Hope you enjoy. Unlike the other characters I've done in this series thus far, Nightcap's animations aren't as similar as the ones from BFN. If you know of a better character I could have rigged Nightcap to, let me know. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed. See you all next one.